What's going on? Welcome to the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix post-race show powered by the Intermission Sports. My name is Sam Domzik, joined by, once again, Julian Quintero. How are you doing today, Julian?
Man, I'm having an absolutely great time. If there's one thing that I can say about this GP that just happened, is that this has been one of the most exciting rule changes that we've seen in the history of F1.
Yes,
Like
indeed.
easily, it's immaculate. The way that these cars are following each other, the racing is fun. The drivers are absolutely loving it. You're seeing so much emotion out of them when it comes to it. If they're having fun, we're having fun, and the product today in Saudi Arabia was no different.
Yes, indeed, for sure. I totally agree with you, honestly. These 2022 cars are like the new regulations. They absolutely nailed it in the way that not only did the teams nail it, but also like the whole FIA did, and how close the cars are. And as well, we saw that Max Verstappen was saying at the end of the race, if you're within half a second of someone at any circuit at any point, you can make a lunge down into turn one or into the next turn, as long as you're within that half a second range without even having to use DRS or anything like that, or overtake, or maybe you can use overtake to help you a little bit. But that's the big difference compared to the previous gen cars, is that DRS was heavily used to have overtakes happen. Within like half a second, you'd have to be within a half a second and use DRS plus overtake to get an overtake. But now with these new cars, they can follow much more closely. We're getting much more exciting racing. We saw with Max and Charles near the end of the race. For the past 9 laps, they were going back and forth, jostling for position, which is great to see, obviously. So yeah.
No, it was absolutely amazing. And again, going back to the point that Max Verstappen said, when you're about half a second back from a car. If we're going back to the previous regulations, we're going back to many years in Formula 1 until DRS got introduced, or if you were going to go right down the pit straight, if you were half a second behind a driver, the one thing that was going into your car was dirty air. And that was just absolutely ruining a lot of cars. It ruined the feel of the race. A lot of cars could no longer follow, and that really just was an absolutely immaculate change in the rules, like in the rule regulation so far, to have the cars be able to follow the way that they are. It's just absolutely impressive, the way that they have it structured. And the fact that we're seeing so many cars that have different builds as well just goes to show that the car itself can look very different and can have drastically different approaches, but still come to the same conclusion. And the fact that we're finally able to see cars follow, we're getting some very entertaining racing. Verstappen and Charles, when they went back and forth, was very fun. We saw Lewis and K-Mag had a nice little bout between themselves. Stroll and Lewis had a nice little bout throughout as well. The big one, though, being Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon going at it for what seemed like ages. It was, 5 laps, 6 laps? Valtteri Bottas came up behind him like, can I join in on this scrap?
Well, no,
it was absolutely beautiful.
Oh, exactly. And I think as well, it was interesting because Otmar, like the team principal, he said they're going to let him race for the first couple laps. And then from there, they're kind of just going to they're going to settle in. And they did start to settle in. But because of how closely they were racing each other, Valtteri Bottas kind of snuck up and was like, hey, I'm going to steal. So there was a certain point where I think it was Ocon, it was like Alonso. So it was Ocon in front, Alonso behind. And then there was Valtteri Bottas. They all had DRS. And there was a certain point as well when both Alonso and Bottas went to go make the same move on the outside, and they both pulled out to the left. And then Ocon was like, Bottas was like, oh, I guess I can't make this move because he's also going to the left as well. So it was great to see. And that's what they mean. Like, again, going back to a previous point we just talked about, but how good these cars are and how close these, we can start to see potentially, with two teammates are very close to. We might see it later on in the season with Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. Two very powerful Ferrari-powered cars and two great cars that Ferrari has engineered for the 2022 season. How will that pay out at the end of the season? Again, we looked at previous years where you have two teammates battling and it's either hold position or team orders or whatever it is. So how will team orders come into play this season? I think that's going to be a big point as well, especially for a lot of the front runners, with Red Bull and Ferrari being the main two cars at the front. Mercedes is getting there, but I guess they just don't have the pace yet. But
I do want to say one thing. I want to give a shout out and props to Otmar, man.
Yeah.
What a guy. And the only reason why I say that is because in so many situations we see a battle like this, and now that they're like the booth, they're always like, oh, what do you think about this? And when we see like a Mercedes battle, you hear Toto's just like, oh, we're going to talk to Bottas or whoever the driver behind. We're going to talk to him to pull off and not fight anymore in the situation. Or if we end up with a situation like what's it called? If it's like the Red Bull, Horner, like they always come up with this long-winded response
Right.
that just makes no coherent sense, and it's just about being on the TV, right?
Yeah.
But Otmar, it's like, what are you gonna do? He's like, well, we're gonna let him race.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Well, we'll see. Like
Yeah,
the
we'll
guy
see.
did not care. He's like, I'm trying to do my job. Shut up.
He's like,
stop
he
talking
did not,
to me.
he did not care at all. He was like, I do not care at all. I have no time for this. I do not have
so
time
much
for
respect for that because the guy was like, look, man, I have a job to do. I know you're doing your job and asking me. That's cool. I'm kind of focused on.
No, I know,
sure
I know what
these
you mean,
guys
because
don't
usually,
wreck.
usually when they have Toto Wolff or Christian Horner or any other team principal, usually it's like, well, you know, they're gonna like, you know, we're gonna
They
talk to
start
both the
waffling.
Oh, sorry, did I lose you there for a second, or? Oh,
Yeah, you did lose me there for a second. Sorry, I was having some mic problems there.
Yeah, no, I think I was getting too close. I was getting my hands were jittery. And I might have unplugged.
Don't worry, and I understand entirely.
My mic was unplugged slightly. But one thing I do want to point out as well is looking at the driver and constructor standings right now. I'm just going to pull up the screen. So right now, as it stands for the driver standings, Charles Leclerc is leading ahead of his teammate Carlos Sainz by 12 points, but Max Verstappen making up a big difference there, jumping from pretty much the bottom all the way up to third just by winning this race, all the way up to third. George Russell shortly behind him in fourth place with 22 points, and then Lewis Hamilton in 16 points. Esteban Ocon doing really well. Sergio Perez, seventh place, obviously with 12 points. But Kevin Magnussen, might I say, in eighth place, the only Haas driver to score points. But then going to the constructor standings, if you go over to the team standings now, looking at the team standings, they're in fifth just from Kevin Magnussen. Just from Kevin Magnussen, they're in fifth place. That's just absolute crazy. And that's just props to Kevin Magnussen right there. Like, you have to point that out. And it's going to be a great battle all season long. But I think right now, as it stands, Ferrari's still still the dominant team. They had a double podium this weekend. They're 40 points cleared of Mercedes and Red Bull, the next two closest teams. So will we see Mercedes and Red Bull will we see, not say Mercedes, but can we see Red Bull get closer in any way? Or
Absolutely.
You think so?
No, the only reason why I'm going to say that, I'm going to include Mercedes in that as well, is because it's only been 2 races in the season, right? And we cannot forget the simple fact that, one, Lewis Hamilton is not going to have a meltdown in qualifying like he did this weekend.
For sure,
That was a very non-Lewis Hamilton type of weekend from him. I could expect wholeheartedly that he's going to come back in, no problem. A lot of respect for George Russell. He's been consistently finishing. He finished P4 last week, finished P5 this week.
Been doing a good job.
That's where the Mercedes is.
Yep.
He's been performing up to that level. And the reason why the Red Bulls obviously are so low, as you know and as everyone knows, is the fact that they did not get a single finisher in that first race in the season. So obviously it's going to be hurting them in this part of the points. Ferrari has a very nice cushion up front, but this is one of the longest, if I remember correctly, this is the longest F1 season that we've had.
22 races, I believe, for this season.
Yeah. So there's a lot of racing to go, a lot of different tracks, a lot of things can still happen. And don't get me wrong, Ferrari and Red Bull look to be the 2 cars to beat at this point in the season. They probably will be by the end of the year. I'm expecting both of them to be at the top of the constructors.
Yep.
I'm expecting Leclerc, Sainz, Verstappen, and even Perez to get in there and do what they can. Obviously, right now, if you look at the point standing, you're going to be thinking maybe that's not so much the case. But trust me, I believe after 5 races in, we'll get a better understanding of the driver's table, of the constructor's table. And
remember
what
what happened last year when Red Bull had a 30-point cushion and then the crash happened and then boom, like one crash in one race weekend, one DNF is catastrophic for a team like Ferrari. So even though Ferrari has a 40-point cushion, if they don't finish one of the races in the points, if one of them has a DNF, it can be costly for their cushion, which is going to be really something to look out throughout the season.
Exactly.
And that's why DNFs I think really are underrated in the season, is the fact that realistically no worries about that. Realistically, it's like you want to always finish in the points. And looking back at previous seasons when Max Verstappen would DNF a couple times in a season and where he would finish in the standings, obviously behind Valtteri Bottas. And that would be the case because he wasn't always finishing every race weekend in the points, or he would have a couple DNFs and it would have greatly affect their chances.
It's incredible the effect that a DNF has on a Formula One race outcome.
Yeah.
If you look at 2016, Nico Rosberg won his championship. It was a beautiful championship. It was a great season as a whole. It came down to the wire in the last race. It would be entirely differently if a couple weeks prior, Lewis Hamilton did not retire with an engine failure in Malaysia.
Yeah.
Like, that decided the championship almost entirely, considering the form that Nico was ongoing in. Yeah, Nico ended up winning that race. He ended up doing well. But Lewis Hamilton would have not had to drive the way that he did in that final race.
Or think about 2007 China. Like, think about that.
Exactly.
Like,
anything can happen in the Formula One championship, literally one race or another. Anything can happen. Any gap can be closed. And the reason why I mentioned it's too early, it's like, yeah, it's been 2 races. Ferrari and Red Bull, the one thing that we can say for sure, I believe this season, is Ferrari and Red Bull have the best cars in the grid.
Yeah.
Hands down. They're the top dogs. They've been dominating the first 2 weekends. Can we see a change? Maybe. And that's because you never know how people decide to develop the cars throughout the season. We might see Mercedes fly up later on in the season. Heck, we might see Haas fly up later in the season.
Yeah.
On a serious note,
they are a Ferrari powered engine though, so that's what it means. So you never know. Like,
I do want to say though, I want to give props. We mentioned it earlier with the 2 drivers squabbling and the love for Ottman and everything like that. But keep an eye out on the Alpine this year if they choose to keep further developing. Heartbreak for Fernando Alonso this race, considering the engine problems that he went through. A car just shut down on him. Very unfortunate because he had a lot of pace. He and Ocon were arguably the 3rd best, 4th best car on the grid.
I think roughly there, yeah.
Mercedes, like them and Mercedes were obviously squabbling for 3rd, 4th best team on the grid this weekend. They've been doing very, very well, and I feel like Alpine can definitely keep developing. But yeah, as you put in the bottom corner, we need to talk about the multiple cars DNFing this weekend. What the heck happened?
Yeah.
Like, the cars, it all happened almost at the same time. Within the span of 1-2 laps, Bottas' car shut off. Alonso's car shut off. Ricardo's car shut off. So it doesn't even show that, like, wow, this was a problem, let's say, for the McLaren, like, the Mercedes engine. No, we had a Ferrari-powered car get shut down and go. A Mercedes-powered car shut off. A Renault-powered car shut off. All we were missing was a Red Bull-powered car, a Honda-powered car that shut down. And they did pre-race.
We did that pre-race. So pretty much all the most constructors, most engine suppliers had some type of engine issue. And again, they did mention how hot it was in the race, in the race, and the temperatures were definitely like they were feeling it again because I think. And again, maybe it could have been how Alonso was driving early on in the race and how he was pushing that car. If he was pushing it too fast, I don't know if he was, or if it was just general. Again, we're gonna get a debrief. We're gonna get a debrief in a couple days, probably from now. They're gonna come out like we did with the Red Bulls and figure out not exactly what happened, but a rough estimate. Like, this is what we know of. This is what we want to share with the public because they're not gonna give all the public knowledge out.
In my
fully.
opinion, if you how we're gonna see this, Sam. Is we just raced in Bahrain. Bahrain is always a hot Grand Prix. We saw several cars complaining about the heat. It affected them. We ended up seeing it, especially with the Red Bulls.
Yep.
A lot of cars were complaining about the heat on the track. This week, no different. Same thing. Multiple cars having to DNF due to issues with their engine, specifically with the electronics when it comes to the heat. So my question when it comes down to this is, the 2022 package is absolutely amazing, but with the giant variety when it comes to how people are allowed to package the side pods, we're seeing so much more, and we're seeing a lot less cooling slots from those side pods. I can definitely see a lot more reliability issues coming down to the heat at the circuit rather than it being a whole situation regarding the actual engine problems itself.
Right. No,
I think it's going to be very interesting throughout the season.
I think, because if you look, looking at the calendar ahead, if you go looking at the calendar, because if you're going to Australia in 2 weeks from now, and then after that, it's going to be Italy. Yeah, so we've got Italy,
Imola,
and then
Imola. We have Miami.
Then we have the Miami Grand Prix. Then to Bahrain. Oh, sorry, not Bahrain. Then to Spain,
Monaco, Canada, and then the British GP.
Yeah, the Silverstone, then Austria, France. So again, some still very warm climates, especially in the summer. When we get closer to those warmer lengths, like Canada, it can be very hot in the summer. Especially in June. Yeah. So we, as you know, as I know in the summer of Canada.
I know as well. I was here. That's what I got here.
I know. Yeah. You got here last year. So you know how hot it is for sure. So exactly in Montreal where it will be interesting, like you said as well, what happens throughout the season. But I think going back to this weekend with these mostly cars DNFing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Sam, something happened with him, whether it be his internet disconnecting or something of the sort. So I'm going to continue on here. With so many cars DNFing so far, it's been a crazy treat. You know, it's been an absolutely very interesting situation throughout. Not only was it just the cars that ended up having engine problems, but it was also just issues on the track. You know, Alexander Albon, both Williams retired due to accidents. Now, they were very different accidents, but I feel like both of them came down as a fault to the Williams driver. And the reason why I say that as a whole... Oh, he's back.
Chrome just decided to alt delete. It happens every once in a while, and I don't know why, but I think it's when I'm running a lot of things, my laptop cannot handle it, and so Chrome decided just to alt F4.
No, that's
But
perfectly fine. Yeah. But I did move the topic of the DNF from the ones that were more mechanical issues to the ones that were more accidents on track. There were only 2 of them, but they were both Williams drivers, and it was very interesting to see. Both Alex Albon and Nicholas Latifi did not finish the race today.
Yeah.
Latifi, his was more so due to an accident that he could have prevented. And to be fair, it happens to most drivers. It ends up being how it is. He came out of the last corner, lost the rear end a bit, and an over-adjusting, hit the wall. Tough to see for Latifi, but it is what it is when it comes down to there. It was driver error, was entirely on him.
Yeah.
You know, he can improve that moving forward. It is what it is. However, one does have to ask, I believe, it's Latifi's 3rd season in F1. Should he be making these type of mistakes? Will Williams now, with their additional backing, look elsewhere for a driver next year? You got to start asking yourself that, considering the amount of issues that Latifi.
I mean, do you see potentially as like Nick DeVries, an immense talent who should be in Formula One? Where does he fit in terms, again, because right now he's with the Mercedes Academy, so he could start out as Williams driver, similar to George Russell. And I think that would be the case that if Latifi continues to struggle this season and continues to score points, and if Albon does pretty well, or just struggles to finish races and continues to have these type of incidents, they may look elsewhere and say, hey, look, we've got a great talent in Nick DeVries and Alex Albon. Again, 2 young drivers for their Williams team to the future. They've got more backing. They've got a little more funding as well. Potentially, could we see a Nick DeVries in F1 next season? That's the question, really.
I do think Nick DeVries deserves an F1 ride, and I definitely think if there's anyone out there that will definitely be talking about it, it's going to be, quite frankly, Williams. McLaren, they're not going to be bringing in a Mercedes driver to help them out, or they're not going to be bringing in Nick DeVries specifically, especially considering the lineup they already have. Same goes for Mercedes. So it just comes down to Williams. I think Nick DeVries can come in and do a bang-up job for them. I think he'll be absolutely great for them. I think he's definitely going to be that guy for them. Now, what does it mean as a whole? Who knows? And if we're going to be looking even further down into this season so far, I'm looking at the F2 standings right now.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at what we've seen so far, Teo Porcher, I know for a fact he's in the Ferrari Academy. That's the whole situation as well. Liam Lawson, he's Red Bull signed and everything, but the one guy I haven't really heard much about his ties with anyone is Richard Vachor. I can't pronounce his name. Richard Vachor. I know it's like Richard, the Dutch driver. He's been amazing as well this season. He finished P2 earlier today in the feature race. He did very well in the sprint race. And he actually ended up winning the sprint race in Bahrain as well. He's been nothing short of absolutely exquisite. And even though a lot of drivers are Red Bull affiliates and everything like that in F2, I feel like you can definitely weed through and find several talents. I think for sure would be great. I think Yuri Vips would be a very good Formula One driver as well. Yeah. Williams needs to start looking at this pool and taking a nice hard look at themselves and seeing what they can bring in. Heck, if I'm being honest, if they want to really come out here, oh my God, they need to come in here and they want to make a splash. If they want to make some noise, hey man, why not bring in 2-time Women's League champion Jamie Chadwick? She's already their reserve driver. She's already been putting in nice work for them. I'm just saying, maybe you want to give Jamie Chadwick a chance. People will call it a PR stunt and everything, but I think Jamie Chadwick can definitely bring it. Hey,
she deserves. She won the W Series 2 years in a row. Like she's a double W Series champion. Again, people may say what it is, but I think she deserves to be. She deserves a spot at least. She deserves a chance.
Genuinely speaking, though, we've seen a lot of women come and go. I love Tatiana Calderon. She's Colombian. A lot of love for Tatiana. We've seen a Carmen Jorda. We've seen a lot of women come and go, but the way that they get signed, they are just treated as, they're a PR stunt. They're here just for that. Jamie Chadwick, with the way that she races, the way that she's done very well in previous series, and she actually, a lot of dudes in the F2 grid have raced against her and they've lost to her. They've come out here. They've done amazing things. I think Jamie Chadwick, is she F1 ready in the moment? No, but I definitely think that she has F1 potential. And if anything, Williams brought Lance Stroll straight out of Formula 3. They brought Latifi in without Latifi winning a championship in F2. Might as well take a swing at Jamie Chadwick. I think she can do amazing things for you, not only in terms of PR or whatever, but on the track. I think she can definitely bring it for you. If not, you look at other F2 drivers, you keep looking at what you have. Jack Aitken might be a solid option. He was all right in that one performance he had with them. You can look at a lot of things, but if there's one thing that I can say for this Williams team is Nicholas Latifi's time, I think, is dwindling. I think this might be his last season. He has a lot of backing. That might be what keeps him in the sport and everything. He has a lot of backing, a lot of money coming in due to his ties, but in reality, I think it's just been 3 seasons already. Latifi hasn't grown a ton. And compared to Lance Stroll, whose dad literally owns a team, I don't think Latifi has that to lean back on. It's just
he doesn't have his billionaire dad to like keep him in the sport. Be like, hey.
Also, Stroll's actually an F1.
Stroll has been improving from again. Like even his first season, he got a podium in 2017 in Baku. Like again, like that was his.
He's a talented driver.
He's a talented driver, but I think it's just early on they were like, oh, he's too young. It's a paid driver. But Nicholas Latifi is like the pure definition of a paid driver. So
moving on to the other driver in Williams who also DNF'd, just because we got to talk about that.
And
we were already talking about Lance Stroll. I want to say this: Alex Albon also retired from the race due to a collision that he had with Lance Stroll.
Yeah.
And I do want to end up saying that was entirely Alex Albon's fault, in my opinion. Stroll had him beat. Great move by Lance Stroll and everything. Albon just decided to lunge it back on the inside. He had no room there, in my opinion, at least. And he ended up collecting Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll suffered some damage, spun around, lost several positions. Quite a shame for Lance Stroll. He was still able to finish the race. I saw a bunch of people saying, oh, Hulkenberg beat Stroll again. I'm like, Stroll technically got wrecked out. I think he might have been in position for a potential points-paying race here if it wasn't for that with Albon.
I mean, we heard the radio message. Well, he literally just said he completely dive-bombed me. Like, Albon just completely dive-bombed for sure. So
no, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, Albon thought he had the space. It was a driver error. It is what it is. You know, I have a lot of respect for Alex Albon. He's going to keep improving. On to the next race it is for Williams. But yeah, I just wanted to point out that wreck was also on Alex Albon. Absolutely unfortunate to see because Albon has a lot of talent. He's coming back into the sport, and you can see that he's still trying to shake off some rust.
Yeah,
but he was having a solid Grand Prix. Quite unfortunate for him. But hey, you know, when the temperature's rising on the track, we're seeing.
Oh, your mic. I think his mic's falling out there. Oh,
there I'm back.
There, you're back. Yeah, no, it's all good.
But we're seeing, you know, with the temperature rising and people becoming a lot more frantic, with the potential points paying position if he or Stroll pushed a bit further was potentially on the cards for them and everything. I'm just saying a lot could have happened at this ending of the race. They were getting a bit squirrely. Kind of tough for them to see, but hey, that's racing. Moving on to next week, I think I'm very excited to see what happens.
Yeah. One more thing before we wrap up the show in the last little bit. Let's talk about that Max versus Charles battle because that was a great battle to end the race. The last 9 laps, from lap 41 to lap 50, it was wheel-to-wheel action. Again, we've already talked about the 2022 cars and how close they are, but that was just a great battle, which I think I'm looking forward to seeing all season and to see how it pans out over the next couple of races because it seems that Red Bull's fixed the reliability issue. That's good because now they're going to have cars that can actually finish the race from start to finish. And hopefully AlphaTauri doesn't have the issue anymore. But I mean, going forward, where do you see this championship? Like, do you see it being similar to like a Lewis Hamilton versus Max Verstappen 2021 battle, that kind of level? Or do you think because it's like, I think it's different in the way that the respect for the both drivers, again, they're both young drivers, so I think it's different, but not the toxicity, but I think it's going to be just as close. I think it's just going to be close.
I think people have been hyping up and talking about the Max versus Charles battle for years now. We've been talking about it for a while since their run in 2019 at Austria. Everyone's been talking about the whole Charles versus Max for the championship situation. It's still early doors. Carlos Sainz is still within striking distance of Charles Leclerc. Now, you can obviously say through these races, Charles has been better these first two. That's just what happens. You know what? It's understandable, but I still think it's early. Carlos has definitely come out here and put a nice challenge on Charles, and when it comes down to it, we've also seen great things from Sergio Perez. We've seen some great things throughout the grid. This battle, I think the big names of the championship battle is going to be Max and Charles. I think they're going to be the ones slugging it out, and at some point, I think the others might drop off. but in my opinion, how I think these cars are in terms of how they're powered, how these cars are in terms of talent, the drivers that are behind the wheel, I think we're going to end up with a championship that's going to resemble a lot to the 2010 or 2012 championship,
right?
Where we're going to have more than 2 drivers in it.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see who those end up being. Sergio Perez, I felt like would have potentially won today's race. Very tough scenes for him in that safety car period. He just didn't have the speed afterwards. Second stint was not great, especially after the whole situation with Carlos Sainz having to give the position back.
Yeah.
He just could not make up the time there. Quite unfortunate to see for Sergio. I believe he did set the fastest lap of the race, though, so it just goes to show he had the pace. It just didn't go his way. Quite tough to see for him, but I'm just saying, maybe Sergio's going to be able to do better in future races as a whole. Maybe it was him lifting the trophy today instead of Max in another universe. Who knows? But the point is, Red Bull this year, I feel like they're showing a bit more impartial behavior to their drivers. Obviously, Max is still their number one boy, but they're showing a bit more love to Checo. And you look over at Ferrari, they're doing well for both of their drivers. Charles has just been a bit better so far. I can just definitely see this coming down to the wire at the end of the season.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's going to potentially be a 3-driver, maybe. I think most likely we'll probably see a Max versus Charles versus Carlos, because it seems that Max, I don't want to discount just Sergio. Sergio could, make a surge in the second half of the season. Who knows? Again, Max could struggle in the rest of the season, and then maybe it's Sergio versus Charles versus Carlos. So again, I have a feeling that it's going to be it could be 2 Ferraris and 1 Red Bull driver. That's what the mix will be, because I just have a feeling that, again, how it goes in the season, but so far from what we've seen, it seems that the Ferrari car is just a little bit quicker than the Red Bull. But again, we saw in this circuit that it was the first sector was advantage Ferrari, but the sector 2 and 3 was advantage Red Bull, which was the big difference, the big key, because obviously once Verstappen overtook Charles, he couldn't really do much in that first sector, because there wasn't a lot of, there wasn't really a DRS zone for him to have a chance there. I think there was one opportunity but once they get out of that first sector, it's Red Bull leading within the last 3 laps when he did overtake him on lap 47. From lap 47 to lap 50, Verstappen was comfortably close there within a half a second. Again, still very close. So a couple more laps, who knows what would have happened if it had been 54 laps or 55 laps or 57 laps, who knows? But regardless, it was still a great battle, and we love to see it because, again, 2 young drivers battling it out. But I think hopefully we'll get to see more and more of it as well. And I'm happy to see Carlos Sainz up there doing well, because last year Carlos Sainz beat out Charles in the points in his first year. I believe he outscored Charles in his first year at Ferrari. So I wouldn't be surprised if it happens again potentially this year, because Carlos Sainz is looking really strong. He's got a super competitive car.
Yeah, for sure. All in all, it's going to be an amazing season. I don't really have much else to add here apart from
indeed.
These have been the 2 best teams so far this year. Will we see a Mercedes surge later on in the season? Will we see someone else challenge?
Who knows?
Who knows? But the way it's looking right now, a Red Bull driver or a Ferrari driver is going to be holding up the world driver's crown at the end of the season.
Yes, indeed. Thank you guys for watching today. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out theintermissionsports.com for more content. And we'll be back not this week, but again, maybe next weekend for a pre-race show for the Australian Grand Prix, which again is set for 1 a.m. Eastern time. So, and qualifying's at 2 a.m. So qualifying is Saturday morning at 2 a.m.
Yo, what's sleep, guys?
What's sleep? Yeah, come on. We're university students. I don't think we'll be. Yeah, exactly. So anyways, have a happy Sunday. Enjoy the day, and we will see you in a couple weeks.